Thank you very much for this nice introduction. But at the same token, I have to say I'm only a replacement today, because the real man who should speak here today should have been also from Austria, Mr. Bernhard He should have told you something about combustion technology in district heating. Unfortunately, he is called in sick, so I had to replace him. So instead, I'm going to tell you a little bit about biomass use in Austria, where we are staying at, and what we are doing here in Canada. Here, really just a flash about my country, where I have to say that the last two figures here, unemployment rate and inflation, is already a projection of the future. The unemployment rate is slightly higher at the moment, and the inflation rate is down, similar like in Canada. It's actually below 1%. And as far as the size is concerned of my country, so I always say we're about half the size of Lake Superior, so slightly smaller than Canada, but nevertheless, with comparable size of per capita income, we have, as I just said, have seen before, 30,000 euro, which is about 46,000 Canadian per capita. So we are very much comparable in this respect. Here, a small pie chart about energy consumption in Austria. We have seen from a speaker before a similar chart here from Canada, and I think it's somehow comparable. Of course, the most outstanding thing here is 20% of our total yearly consumption comes from renewable energy. The figure you see on top here, it's 1,394 petajoules. All the technicians know what I'm talking about. I'm not a technician, I only can tell you one petajoule is roughly 278 million kilowatt hours, and 1,349 petajoule is the yearly energy consumption in Austria. Of this 22%, 300 petajoule comes, as I mentioned before, from renewable energy, and you can see of about half of it really comes from real bioenergy, and of course the other part is hydropower. We're still working on photovoltaics and wind power. Where does the bioenergy come from? Also, the biggest part, of course, from logwood forest, the wood chips residues. And this is, I think, perhaps the interesting part, 1.4% from waste. Black liquor means used oil, landfill gas, straws, and pellets. So we really try to use not only wood in the use of biomass, in the consumption of biomass, but also mixtures of it. I had the privilege leading a group of 28 Canadians this February. Among them was, by the way, Mayor Savage from West Nipissing to Austria, and we have been visiting a number of biomass plants of Austria. Among them, you might remember it, Mark was one of the first one, was a biomass plant using sawdust mixed with chicken manure from a chicken farm and being combusted. So there are all types of things we're using. How does the heating situation in Austria look like? Austria is a continental climate, somehow comparable to the climate here in Canada. We have about 470,000 dwellings, modern single house systems. They are used, 470,000 are using logwood boilers, wood chips boilers, and pellet boilers. Generally, I want to say wood chips versus pellets. I have been asked these questions, this question for several people have asked me these questions. Of course, as you can see here from this chart, there are far more pellet boilers in Austria. And this, actually, I don't have the most current figures, but you can say that up till 2009, it's really an upward trend for pellet boilers, and so is for the wood chip boilers, but lagging a little bit behind. The reason being is pellets are used in Austria mostly by single-family houses, and this has logistic reasons. Pellets, wood pellets, are delivered in Austria like an oil tank truck, by truck, and then just blown into the basement or in the bunker, and then completely refueled. On the other hand, wood chips are less energy intensive. They have they leave a smaller carbon print behind because there's no manufacturing process in between. So they are easier to manufacture, and they are used in all installations, biomass boilers, anything bigger than 1 megawatt. We use mostly wood chips in Austria. Here you can see just an overview. This is Austria. This is our 84,000 square kilometers in the middle of Europe. We have about 1,000 biomass plants producing 1,000 district heating plants producing heat for about 1,132 megawatts, and about 2/3 of these plants are operated by farmers in villages. So you see they are scattered all over the countryside, and the number of these district heating plants are increasing actually every year. I have to apologize about this chart because it has a German description. I couldn't change it, but what you can see here on top is from 2004 until 2020, the total energy of consumption of Austria, 1,400 petajoule. It will be going down. This is our expectations until 2020 to 1,100. I think this is remarkable. And the share of renewable energy will be going up from 300 to 500 petajoule. And from this renewable energy, 280 petajoule should come from biomass. So this is the target of our government to reach these goals and to stay within the targets of the Kyoto Protocol, which is being most probably renegotiated this December in Copenhagen. Last but not least, I know you all are ready for lunch. I just want to end up with a little story. And this story, most of you might have heard already, but some of you not. So that's why I'm telling you this tale. This is here somewhere in Europe. The target points directly to Austria. Where the road ended, there was a small little town in the southern part of Austria by the name of Güssing, as you can see here, really in a very remote zone, if you can talk about the remote zones in Central Europe, but it was remote back 25 years ago on the border to Hungary and Slovenia, at that time the Yugoslav Republic. A small town with no industry is actually not correct. Very little industry, but a very high unemployment rate. 70% of the people was commuting to Vienna, so high migration rate, and of course the small farmers were abandoning their farms and moving to the city, and there was no infrastructure. So what was the solutions to Güssing problems proposed at that time by three crazy ecological students they came up to the mayor and they asked him, Mayor, what is your yearly bill for energy consumption of your town? And he said he's paying yearly 6.2 million euros, which is about 10 million Canadian dollars. 650,000 euros was the income from a small hydroelectric power plant they were operating. And the idea was, I'm going back now, to produce this energy on its own in the immediate neighborhood of these towns, meaning from biomass, from agricultural residues, but also solar energy. So this was the so-called city solution for the city of Güssing to create a revenue of 14 million euros within the city limits, so to say, creating new jobs, independency, stable prices, secured supply of energy, and CO2 reduction. This story, I believe, was of a similar town, was told already yesterday, but it is really remarkable for this small town. It has been a remarkable example how things can be turned around. Güssing, we have been visiting with the Canadian delegation this February. Güssing, there are 50 new companies around in this area now, solar voltaic companies, smaller research companies. 1,200 jobs have been created. Güssing has become the first self-sufficient town in Europe, energy-sufficient town, and actually they are starting now also selling their excess energy and making even more money. So this is some examples of the power plants in Güssing which have been built. You see, this is a biomass district heating plant fueled by wood chips, combined plant, solar plant, another biomass plant, a biogas power plant. The city of Güssing has its own gas station, biogas, and it entitles only its own citizens to fill up their gas tanks with their own fuel. So I believe this example which has been set there has really become a role model. By the way, Güssing has become also an ecological tourist spot, and hotels are being built, and they have now 120,000 visitors every year. 20 years ago, nobody was going to Güssing, although the landscape is quite pretty down there. And they have good wine down there in the southern part of Burgenland. This is an example of the only biomass plant being built by an Austrian company in Quebec, in the eastern part of Canada. There are some small biomass plants in British Columbia with Austrian origin. Here you can see their key data, and we hope that this technology which is really available now for you. There was a speaker yesterday who said that you Canadians are very lucky. You can cherry pick the technologies you like and which are suitable for you, and work together and do the same thing here, and use your huge resources of biomass, and eventually this is the main thing to make money and make business. So I really would like to invite you all if you're interested to learn more about these plants in Austria and about these technologies, here are my coordinates. Just drop me an email and say that you are interested, for instance, participating in one of our upcoming missions next year, which will be around May and June. We're going to do the same what we did this February. Just let me know. I will be more than happy to try to accommodate you and fit you in our trips. Last but not least, I would like to mention that the Austrian government is funding and supporting feasibility studies for biomass projects, really grassroots projects coming up from an idea into the real thing and make it happen. We are working now with the town of Westnipissing on such a pilot project. So please don't be afraid, even if you have not very concrete idea in which direction you want to go, what buildings you want to include and so forth. We can really support you there. Again, just give me a call or drop me a line. I would be more than happy to talk to you about it. Thank you very much for your attention.